Hello, it's Amy with Just a Little Ink. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, celebrating now my 24th year as a demonstrator. And today I'd like to share with you a fun alternative card for the June paper pumpkin kit. It was the Bikes and Blooms kit. And if you are familiar at all with Paper Pumpkin, it is a subscription service offered through Stampin' Up. You do that through the website, stampinup.com, and under subscriptions or kits, you can find it. If you'd like more information, I'm not going to spend a lot of time right now talking about it, but just so that you're aware, that's the only way you can get the kit or the refills or any complimentary like add-on kits and things. So right now there's a set of dies that coordinate with 3 months of Paper Pumpkin, and so we're finishing up with the June kit. And so I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to my camera and kind of share with you what those cards were. The Bikes in Bloom, I did just minor tweaks on mine because I wanted mine birthday cards, and so I added a birthday greeting, which is not Paper Pumpkin. And then I did the same on this particular one, but in every other way they are the kit the way they came. I often will make mine that way. And this one is exactly as Paper Pumpkin's instructions gave. You got all the supplies to make 3 each of these cards. You got a spot of, I don't have the spot out because I use my full pads, a spot of Calypso Coral ink, so it always comes with ink. It comes with a stamp set, and this, because it's hard to see what the stamp set is, I've stamped it and stuck it on a piece of cardstock. Then you also end up with, if on your very first kit, you'll get a small block. And so I'm going to go ahead and just get going on what I'm doing for my alternate card. So I've taken a piece of basic white thick cardstock, 11 by 4 1/4, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. I'm going to fold it over. It's the fastest way to get a great inside and not be too heavy. And then I'm using a piece of paper of the Designer Series paper. Let me pull out my cheat here a little bit. This is the Lovely and Beautiful Designer Series paper. The other sides, which would be beautiful as well, have some gold foil images or accents too. But I don't want it to be too loud, and so I'm only going to be using the Calypso Coral side. I'm going to run a bead of multi-purpose liquid glue, and just about a 1/4 inch or so away from the edges, and then I'm going to attach it. This is a piece that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so that it should cover the entire front of my card base. It might be just a little longer, and if so, I can trim it. So I'm going to make sure I'm lined up. I like the liquid glue for the fact that I have a little more give, a little more wiggle room with what I'm doing. Then I have cut 2 pieces of cardstock, one out of Secret C two-tone. Two-tone cardstock is two-tone, just like it says, a light side and a dark side. I like two-tone for layering because it's lighter. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach it. And once I stamp, I've got another one from Basic White, and these are cut from the Everyday Arches dies, which I have somewhere here. And I've cut a couple of the larger pieces. I keep all of my dies on magnetic sheets. They do not come that way. I believe these are 3 and 4. So some of the larger ones, they've been very, very popular, and so in and out of stock. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go ahead and mount up my bicycle stamp. So I'm going to grab the bicycle and get a block, and some Secret C ink. So I'm going to go ahead and get that moving. And for this particular card. So I'm going to go ahead and line up. I have to get myself in the screen just a little bit. I'm going to come up about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or so, keeping my bicycle as straight as I can. Okay, and while I have my ink out, I will clean my stamp, but I've got another time I'm using it. I want to stamp the thank you image, and so I'm going to grab another block so that I can have my thank you. And I've cut from Petal Pink a die. This is from, and if you're not in the US, you can't get this one. This is from the Sweet Words and Labels dies, and it is one of these labels. I love this particular die set. So again, very popular set. I'm going to stamp this thank you stamp right in the middle here. And, well, actually, yes, right in the middle. So come in, like so. Secret C is kind of my new black in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go ahead and put this pad away for the moment. And then what I want to do is I want to attach my two pieces together. I'm doing it now, and you'll understand why in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Stampin' Seal. It's just the easiest to layer. Get them separated out here. Quick layers. You'll have to tell me what you're doing with all of this. And then I'm going to pop this up with Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'm going to grab some, just need a couple of them. And I'm going to only take off on one side for now. I'll layer it. I want it kind of up, not too high, and yet I want it far enough over. So I'm going to kind of make sure that my thank you is straight. And then there are some butterflies that are in this set. Two of them are together. Grab a block here. And I'm going to use my Calypso Coral. Ink up with Calypso Coral. This would be the spot that came in this set, on this kit. And so I'm going to stamp here. And then I'm going to grab just some baby wipes. I keep them on my desk. It's real quick and easy. This chamois works really well as well, but oftentimes for me, it's hard for me to have water nearby. So I'm just going to set that aside, get a quick dry. And then I want to grab just the little one. So I'm going to grab just on the end. You can do the same if you have your, I can't talk today. If you have your spot, that works as well. So I'm just going to stamp over here so I can get that. I want to clean it again. And grab Petal Pink ink. And I'm going to do the same thing. I only want, well, what did I do with, don't you love it when you wipe it off and it's not there? Well, I will have to find it because that is a problem. So I'm going to grab my large butterfly. There's another butterfly on. I'm going to grab it, ink up. I think when I cleaned, I knocked it on the floor. So I'm going to have to dig down and find. So I'm just coming up over here with that other because there's a couple different stamps. Yes, I did. There it is. So I need it back on here. So I'm going to grab that little and just ink with Petal Pink. Yeah, it's one thing with your stamps, you want to make sure you keep track of them. So I've got my my bicycle and I've got my butterfly stamped, but I like to ground my bicycle. It looks like it's floating and I don't like that. So I just grab my pecan pie watercolor pencil and I'm just going to draw a little bit underneath my wheels just so I have a little bit of grounding. I didn't want it to be too heavy or I could have used Stampin' Blends, but that pencil works really, really well. And then all I'm doing is I'm going to stick this down directly. So again, I can just use some of my Stampin' Seal. I can go ahead at this point and take the backing off of this dimensional. And then I'm going to line up my image on the front of my card. This was my thank you notes for my Paper Pumpkin subscribers, those who subscribe through me. And I send a thank you every month. And so this was their thank you. And it's fun, it's whimsical, and it was something you could easily recreate with other images. So I'm going to set this over here, but I thought, as I was playing, that I would do it again, and this time I could do a pop-up. And so what I did is I made the same size, 11 by 4 1/4, and it's scored at 5 1/2, but it's also then scored, I believe, at 2 3/4. And that one I'm going to fold in to itself. So I've got a pop-up. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it back down flat. And I've cut that same image, but I cut it in half so that I can layer. And I want to make sure my pieces line up. It looks like they do. And so I'm going to go ahead and attach my glue on the back side here. Again, about a 1/4 inch or less. Could be an 1/8. You just don't want too wide of a bead. Ooh. And I'm going to attach it on this lower section. And this is just so that portion moves. So I'm going to line up. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the top side. And again, I'm going to make sure I get it over that fold. Line it up. Now you could probably cut it one piece and score it in the middle. I didn't want to go that route, but you probably could. This is kind of on the fly anyway. So then I will go ahead and repeat what I was doing with one minor addition. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that ink again. I'm going to stamp my bicycle. And this time I will clean it because I want to make sure it's ready for my next card. I'm going to go ahead and stamp thank you on my piece of petal pink that I already die cut. Okay. And then I'm going to come in with those butterflies again. I'm going to start with the lighter end this time. And I'm going to only grab that small one. I'm going to stamp him here. And I might do a couple more because I'm doing it a little different here. So then I'll clean my image, making sure not to knock that one off on the floor. And then I want to grab the larger butterfly, the one that's single. I'm not sure he's really bigger. I'm going to stick it up over here. Okay, and then again, I'm going to grab the dual butterflies here. I'm going to grab that Calypso Coral ink. And I'm going to stamp a couple times here. And then again, making sure to clean it well, not drop it on the floor. And actually, you know what? I think I'd rather take that large one again. And I'm going to stick one over here, like so. So then, I again need to grab my pencil just to give a little grounding for that bicycle to be driving on the ground. I'm going to go ahead and layer it on my piece of two-tone Secret C. And then the fun part is I'm only going to attach it on this lower section, and I'm going to go right in the middle on this one. So I'm going to come in, kind of get an idea of where that's at. So I want to kind of keep it from this part down. So I'm going to come here and put just a few rows of Stampin' Seal. And I can line up right in the middle. Like so. We have one more thing on this card I forgot about, but that's all right. So see, then it moves. And then I'm going to take my dimensionals on the back of here again. Except this time I'm going to stick them on the what would appear to be the inside. And this is just a simple way to dress up a card and give it a little more motion. And so I'm going to come in. I think I want it to come. So let's come here. Easier for me to see center this way. So I'm going to stick it here. So it'll say happy or thank you there, and then it'll stop so that it can sit on someone's desk if I do that. Kind of a different way of looking at it. What I didn't share was that I wanted to use some of the pearlized faceted circles. They came with the suite of products that this paper coordinated with. Paper is still available, so you can still buy it, and the gems were still available last I checked. Things change pretty quickly, but they were still available. And I'm just going to take a couple of these. So I want one up here. I've got one down in here that's the same color. Stick it over here. And then I'm going to grab one more and put it down below here. So I like them in at least threes. And I would do the same on this card. So this was fun, and I thought, well, I was flipping through some old projects I've done. I'll set this aside. And I came across one from oh my goodness, let me see if I remember where I even did this one. I'll have to go back on my blog and look. Seems like it was 2007. It was way, way back, because we had the Wanted stamp set then that had this horse, and I did a stamping off to give motion. And so what I've done is I've come with the same paper, that same lovely and beautiful, this side is the gold on the white, but then this print had I think the now retired peach pie and petal pink, as well as fresh freesia. And so all I'm doing is I'm going to fold this in half. This was cut the other direction, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at the middle at 4 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and attach this to the front of my card because this was a fairly simple idea. And before I do that, actually, I am going to put on there was some of this trim. This is the Specialty Rick Rack. It came with and is still available with the Sweet as a Bug suite. So I'm going to trim just a little bit so I don't have frayed edges. And I'm going to put a little adhesive along the sides here so that I can loop this as close to centered as I can eyeball. That's kind of where we're going to go, is eyeballing. Close. And I can trim off a little bit. That's a little long. So I've got a piece in the middle, kind of mirrors. I don't know if you can see my sample I printed here. This one's right here. Has a piece of cardstock that was gone into the middle there. Here I'm using a piece of Designer Series paper. And I'm going to get it centered on my front. And there we go. Slide it down just ever so slightly. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside so it's out of the way. And I've got a piece of basic white as well as another piece of fresh freesia to layer on. And I'm going to grab my bicycle and I want to stamp, you know what, I think I want to do it in Old Olive just to kind of tie it off. And so how you work with this, and I thought this would be so fun, I'm going to ink up once in Old Olive. And I'm going to stamp it as if the closest part, so I want to stamp it here. I'm going to hold it here for a second. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to stamp again, sliding it down just a little. And then I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to stamp it one more time, sliding it down a little. And keeping it where we're not going off the cardstock and holding it for a second. And when I lift it off, you'll notice that I've gotten it lighter and lighter and lighter so that it appears as though my bicycle was moving. The same concept I had done with the previous set. And so then we'll go ahead and clean up my stamp, but then I want to use those butterflies again, and I will use some fresh freesia. So I'm going to grab that here just to give a little interest. And so I'm going to put them here just to kind of give just a little bit of interest. And then I think we'll use that large one and move it over, or the single. And this time I want it lighter than this, so I'm going to stamp off once and then put it kind of over here so that it is not as dark. And you could play with yours a little bit more if you wanted it differently. So then I am going to come and stamp my thank you, and I'm going to do it in the same color so it's a tone on tone. Fresh freesia. There we go. And then I can attach everything together. So we're going to go ahead and attach these two. So to my fresh freesia, and you saw my hint there, you can stamp off on something you're covering up anyway. You'll have to let me know if motion stamping is something you've done before, and if you have, where you've used it, and if you haven't, where would you use it now? So then I'm going to do is just to keep this simple like I did before, I'm going to go ahead and lift this up with dimensional since they have the ribbon down there. So I'm just going to come in, put one on the corners. I could put one in the middle. And I'm going to attach this at the top, kind of not quite centered top to bottom, but I want it centered right to left with a similar reveal at the top. Okay. And then I want to do the same thing where I've got a little bit, because I think what I want to do is put my thank you on this side. So I'm going to put a couple of them on the sides. And then, just because I want to lift it up just ever slightly, I'm going to come in so that it lines up here. And then I could come in with those same gems. I'm just going to use the lighter of them and not the really solid Calypso coral ones. And so then I would come in and add just a couple gems. And again, I've got some of the smaller pieces. I like my putty end of take your pick. And then I would want to make sure I've got one more. And so I'm going to put it over here. Again, because I like threes. So, what do you think? Are these some options that you might consider as you stamp and do some alternates with the Bikes and Blooms stamp set? I hope that that's something you'll consider and that you'll join me again soon. I've got some brand new products that I'm excited to share, and so my next video is going to definitely have some of those. And so hold on tight, and if you've got questions, please reach out. If you've not subscribed, I'd so appreciate you doing so. If you don't have a demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator. You can order anytime on my website, justalittleink.stampinup.net. And until next time, happy stamping.